Hey there, grade 7s. Welcome back. This math video is for May 12th. It is 8.4 of our circles unit. We've nearly completed the arc of this particular unit, and today we're going to be taking a look at some pie charts or circle graphs. So you can see here that I've got a really interesting survey. 300 students. You'll notice how often after the title in brackets it tells you how many people were surveyed or how many things were involved with a circle graph. So right here we can see 300 students were surveyed and they got asked a really important question if they preferred cars, trucks, or vans. Amazingly, vans weren't killed, but they still got 25% of the vote. So that's awesome. So what is the most popular vehicle is the first question that's on here. So when we look at a circle graph, you can tell which one is the most popular because it would be the biggest part of the pie, the biggest part of the circle. So in this case, car is the most popular one. You can also compare the numbers. A good circle graph should also label what percent all these different sections are. So cars got 40%, vans got 25%, truck has 35%. So obviously car is the most popular one in this case. So I'm going to put car as the answer. What is the least popular vehicle? This will be the smallest section of the circle graph. In this case, it is vans, 25%. So we will put van on here for that one. How many students prefer cars? Now this is a tougher one. We know 300 students are surveyed. We have that there in the title. And we know that it was 40% who prefer cars. So what we have to do actually is we have to find 40% of 300. It's that kind of question. It's really a percent question. So as you guys know, when we try to find this kind of thing, what we do is we first turn the percent into a decimal. 40% is the same thing as 0.4. I suppose if you prefer, you could think of it as 0.40, but that will only be more work. So 40% is the same thing as 0.4 as we've covered in our percent unit. We can then take that decimal and multiply it by the amount of the whole, so multiplied by the 300. So we're going to do 0.4 times 300. So 0.4 times 300 is going to get us to that answer. So we can go off on the side here. We're going to do 300. When we multiply by a decimal, we pretend it's not there. So it's really just 300 times 4, and we'll add the decimal places at the end. 4 times 0, 0. 4 times 0, 0. 4 times 3, 12. So let's take a look here. How many decimal places were in the question? None over here, one over there. So there would be one decimal place in this answer, 120.0, or in other words, 120 students preferred cars. So now let's take a look at vans next. 25% of students preferred vans, and there were 300 students surveyed in total, so we're really looking for 25% of 300. Once again, I got to turn my percent into a decimal first. Remember, you can always do this by moving the decimal place 2 spots. Right now, you can't see the decimal, but we can move it over. It's, of course, always after the ones column. So we moved over 2 spots here. It becomes 0.25. And we can multiply that by 300, and it'll get us our answer. And we know to multiply by 300 because that's how many people were surveyed in total. So a bit of a trickier one than the last one here. We're going to do 300 times 25. And the reason I'm not multiplying by 0.25 is when we multiply by decimals, we first pretend there's no decimal at all, and we can put it back in there when we're all done at the end. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 3, 15. 2 times 0, oh, hang on there. We're 1 spot over, so we got to put a 0 on to start with. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 3 is 6. We're going to add these guys up here, and we've got 7,500. Of course, that's not it. There's 2 decimal places here, none over here, so there's 2 decimal places I need to add back into my answer. In other words, 75 students preferred vans. It makes sense that this would be less students than number of people prefer cars because, of course, vans took up less space as a lower percentage than those that prefer cars. So next up, we got to do it with trucks. So once again, we're on to it. What percent of it is it that preferred trucks? That's 35%, which of course is the same thing as 0.35. Again, whenever you turn a percent into a decimal, you can move the decimal over 2 spots, and that gets it to you. So let's multiply that by 300. So we're going to do 300 times 0.35 to find this. And what we got over here is we're going to set it up, 300, And we've got 35 because we're going to ignore the decimal. So 5 times 0, 0, 5 times 0, 0, 5 times 3, 15. We're going to start with a 0 over here because we're moving over one spot. 3 times 0, 0, 3 times 0, 0, 3 times 3, 9. Add them up again. These add up to 0, these add up to 0. This one adds up to 5. This one adds up to a 10. There were 2 decimal places in my original question, so 2 decimal places is my answer. 105 students preferred trucks. And this makes sense. It's lower than the amount that preferred cars, but more than the amount that liked vans. So this all does indeed make sense. So things to look for on the circle graph. A circle graph that's complete, it should have a title telling you what's going on. It should also give you information about how many people are surveyed. Circle graphs and pie charts are only useful in situations that are out of 100%. So all the percents should add up to 100%. In this case, they do. The bigger sections means that there'll be a higher percentage. The smaller sections means a lower percentage. And again, circle graphs are good for when you're looking about something out of a whole, the whole in this case being all 300 students. Our next question here is about favorite primary colors. So clearly, very interesting survey topics here. There was 30 students surveyed, and they got to be asked what was their favorite color, if it's blue, green, or red. Now, it's worth pointing out that green is actually not a primary color, so they should have probably been asked about yellow instead, which is a very popular color, clearly. Now, what percent of students chose red? We don't know. It's not there, but we can figure it out. How much should the entire circle graph be worth? Well, a whole circle graph should be 100%. 50 of it is in use and 30 of it's in use. So 50 plus 30 means that 80% of it's in use. So what percent should be here? Well, we can do 100, take away 80, and that will leave us with 20. So this should be 20%. 20% of the students must have chosen red. How many students is that? Well, 30 students were surveyed, so we're going to do 30, and we're going to multiply it by 20%. But to do that, we need to turn 20% into a decimal, and 20% is the same thing as 0.2. So we're going to take 0.2, we're going to multiply it by 30, see if that gets us to how many students chose red. So we're going to do, up over here, we're going to pretend like there's no decimal at all. 2 times 0, 0, 2 times 3, 6, 1 decimal place there, 1 decimal place here, so 6 students chose red as their favorite primary color. Now the way I was able to get to these answers is I had to remember that a full circle graph or a full pie chart should add up to 100%. So that's why I was able to find out that there was 20% there for the red. Our last survey here, maybe a more interesting one possibly. 45 students are surveyed, 9 students like Disney Plus and 27 students like Netflix. What was the survey likely about? Well, given that we're talking about Netflix and Disney Plus, it seems like it's about favorite streaming services. What percent of students like Disney Plus? Well, we're not given the percent here. There's no nice pie chart, but we can find it out. We know how many students were surveyed in total. It's out of 45. So that's like a fraction. It's going to be out of 45. How many of them chose Disney Plus? Let's take a look here. It says 9 students like Disney Plus. Just like that. Now, there's a couple ways I can get to finding out what this is going to be as a percent. If I'm allowed to use a calculator, I could right away as do 9 divided by 45. If I had to do it without a calculator, though, it's going to be really hard to find out how many 45s go into 9. So what if I'd use some equivalent fractions here to make it a bit easier? These are both multiples of 9. I can divide them both by 9 and make this a lot easier for myself. So how many 9s go into 9? 1 does. How many 9s go into 45? 5 do. Really, 1/5 of the students are those that like Disney Plus. And finding out what 1/5 is as a percent is far easier. So now I can instead do 1 out of 5 is 1 divided by 5, which is how many 5s go into a 1. Can a 5 go into a 1? Of course not. That's 0. I can move on and put my decimals here. How many 5s can go into 10? 2 do. Leaves me with nothing left. 0.2. Now 0.2 is not a percent. So we gotta turn that decimal into a percent. To do that, I move my decimal place over 2 spots. In other words, 20% of the students like Disney+. How many students chose a third option? Once again, I have to know how much we're here in total. So 45 students are surveyed in total. 9 students liked Disney+. 27 students liked Netflix. So let's add those together to find out how many students have already chosen something. So 9 plus 27 leaves me with 36. If I take the full 45 and I subtract 36, I'll find out how many students are left over. And the answer will come back 9. So 9 students must have chosen something else. Maybe they're into like Crave or Hulu or something like that, I guess. Maybe they just watch YouTube. Anyways, that brings this video to the end. The important things to remember are the following. Circle graphs are always out of 100%. The amount of people who are surveyed, or the amount of hours is out of, or amount of money, the amount of something that makes up that 100% is generally given after the title. You can find out how much that is by taking the percent, turning it into a decimal, and multiplying it by the full amount. And that will tell you how much it is that anyone chose a certain section at any given time.